Hello, everyone. My name is Heath Stockton. I am with Booz Allen Hamilton, and I am the worldwide leader for business development. And I appreciate you joining us for our lively panel discussion on cyber risk management today. Our esteemed panelists bring a wealth of knowledge on risk management. So without further ado, I'll ask them to introduce themselves before we get into discussion. Let's start with you, Mark.
Thank you, Heath. Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Rizaldi. I am Chief Information Risk Officer and Deputy CISO at Merck. I've been there, it's approaching 4 years. I've been doing risk in cyber and IT for over 35 years. It's great to talk with everyone today. Looking forward to the conversation. Michael?
Thanks, Mark. Hi, everyone. Mike Valone here with Booz Allen Hamilton as well. Been with the firm for 15 years. I lead our global cyber risk management practice and really focused on designing and building cyber risk practices and programs for clients, inclusive of FAIR, third-party, and supply chain risk for our clients. Thanks. Chris, over to you.
Thanks, Mike. Looking forward to this discussion. I'm on the cyber risk management team, working closely with Mike in building cyber risk management programs, focusing specifically on leveraging FAIR to quantify risk and help clients mature their cyber risk management programs.
Great, thanks, guys. So let's jump right into it. Mark, what is a positive outcome you've seen firsthand from effective risk management?
It's a good question. What we found is really business engagement for one, right? That the awareness that risk and security is everyone's job, right? It's not just about our team or IT, but really to embed risk, risk managers into the business and to make them aware of why we're there and that we're there to be enablers and not inhibitors to what they're trying to do. Because at the end of the day, we need to support positive business outcomes, right? That's why we're there, and to make sure that we articulate a level of risk so they can make better risk-informed decisions. So, one of the big positive outcomes for us was embedding that deep into the business, into their strategies and what they want to do. And bringing that in the beginning, right? Not towards the end of what they're trying to do, but in the beginning, so we can have that feel to them that we are an enabler and not an inhibitor. So things like that, and then more down in the technical kind of weeds is really about increasing visibility into what we have. So understanding what we have, because we're trying to reduce risk to our most critical assets. So understanding what those critical assets are. And again, that's all part of business engagement, is to better understand what they have, where it is, and identifying those. So that's some of the positive things that we've seen is really embedding risk and security into everything that we do.
Critical. Mike, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Mark, you bring up some great points. I'd like to add on to some of those. Some of the things we've seen are really around building the ability to create and make defensible data-driven decisions with confidence around effectively where to focus investment resources to maximize the value of an organization's security program. We see this a lot with our clients initially struggling in this space to try to maximize the value of their security program. And risk management, to your point earlier, is a great enabler, really tying in the ecosystem both within the cybersecurity program as well as the risk management ecosystem to drive value. An example we've seen with a recent client, an aerospace and defense client of ours, was struggling with repeat audit findings and was spending really an extraordinary amount of time and resources trying to mitigate the problems around these audit findings. While material business and cyber risks were both unknown and untreated, they were solely and uniquely focused really on those audit findings. After coming in and helping them understand the root causes, and we helped design a risk program that proactively enabled effective measurement using the FAIR-based approaches and cyber risk scenarios, really able to help them prioritize their risks and compliance issues with confidence to help them enable those effective decisions. To really help them, provide clear focus on what their priorities were, embed that into the business decision making, and then how risk ultimately tied to those priorities. So really give them clarity. Chris, what about your thoughts?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So I want to jump off one thing that Mark said around presenting a picture or articulating a risk level. And that's where we've been able to really help some of our clients with leveraging FAIR and then being able to show the journey of this is where you are, this is where you need to go. And this is sort of what the ROI, return on investment, or quantified value of your security controls are. So there, we were working with one client specifically around how do we show incremental improvements in investments and how do you demonstrate to the business or the board what the value that they're getting from their investments into the security program and into these expensive projects. So FAIR was instrumental in helping us decompose the risk problem, come up with the attributes that you can measure on a discrete level, and then tying FAIR together with things like control framework, CIS, NIST, CSF 853, and MITRE ATT&CK to really build a holistic model that can output those defensible sort of risk level answers and also elevate the conversation to ROI and business value on your security control investments.
Wow. Great insights, guys. So, Mike, what role do you think that risk models and frameworks played in those positive outcomes?
Yeah, that's a really great question too. Another item that comes up a lot with our clients. So we really think risk models and associated terminology play a critical role in enabling organizations to effectively measure and manage risk in a sustainable and defensible manner. Risk models, specifically FAIR, provide a proven construct to decompose risk into discrete measurable elements, similar to Chris's point earlier, that can be measured using data common across any organization. And most organizations have different parties that have different pieces of the risk equation. FAIR really allows you to break those pieces down into measurable parts that can be owned by different parts of the organization. This has been critical, and really using that framework and the taxonomy of FAIR provides a repeatable and sustainable way to do so. A specific example we see here is around how threat intelligence really intersects with the threat capability part of a model, whereas audit reports, similar to my story earlier, really informs resistance strength, right? So different parts of controls, different parts of the risk equation inform different parts of the model. And you need that model to really provide you that structure. Getting clarity around these parts of the risk equation is really critical in the analysis. Mark, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, it's hard to add a lot to what you had said, Michael, but I agree. I think it plays a key role. It does for us. Again, it provides guardrails in which to operate and monitor. Right. We're always being asked to, how are we doing, against industry into our peers and really, where do we sit in the maturity of risk and cyber and things. So, again, like you said, it creates kind of those guardrails. It's constantly, changing, with the landscape of threats and vulnerabilities, which is a good thing, right? So it's not something that's it's constantly moving. So it's definitely plays a key role, and when we look to, figuring out the maturity of where we are, it gives us those guardrails into that we can monitor both from an external and internal perspective. So for us, it's key, and I think again, it's one of those key things that that everyone should look at, because again, it gives us those pieces that we can look at again, wide and deep in our area.
Great, thanks, Mark. Chris, anything to add?
Yeah, one thing around frameworks that might not come intuitively, even when you're thinking about FAIR or all the other ones out there, is how it can be used to structure your risk management program from an operating model perspective. And when we say operating model, we're talking about the roles, processes, org structure, governance, what working groups and forums and committees you need. So we've already mentioned a few times in this conversation how FAIR allows you to decompose the risk problem into its subparts and sub-factors. And so when you're able to do that, you can look at the model and identify what parts of the organization, either within the security program or within the business or within support functions like enterprise risk management, audit, or legal, might have key intersecting points with this model. And that allows you to, really eliminate the silos that could have potentially been stood up based on legacy operations and And we've seen that a lot where there's silos that have been built up, and it's really inhibiting the ability for the risk management program to accelerate and really present that holistic risk picture. And we think FAIR is a good way to think about what data you need, who has it, and figure out how to collectively get the data on a repeatable way, which is where the tie into operating model is, because you need to figure out a way to make it run as a machine, and it's not hard to go get business data, or it's not hard to go get audit data, or it's not hard to go get control data. It all just sort of comes together on a repeatable basis. So we like to think about it both from a measuring risk standpoint, and then as a way to think about and structure how the risk program, the security program, and really the enterprise should be coming together to present a security risk picture. So
great. So Mark, coming back to you, when cyber risk management is done well, what value does it bring to the enterprise?
So let me answer that in a statement that we actually have in our mission and our charter, right? So in creating a top a top rate and kind of best in class risk management framework. We've kind of developed a mission and a charter and in terms of what we're trying to achieve. But in my experience across a couple different industries, when it's done well, right, our ultimate goal, right, is to foster a strong culture of information risk management and security across the entire workforce, and provide top-notch service and expertise that will allow the business to operate in a risk-informed and risk-adjusted environment. Our ability to articulate to the business the impact and likelihood of what they're trying to do from their strategy is going to enable them to make better decisions, right? Every decision we make, almost every decision we make in life, there's a risk, is risk reward. So our ultimate job is to articulate that risk. And, again, when it's done right, we are brought into those questions early. And we can give them kind of that risk, that impact, that likelihood early in the process, so they can make any adjustments early, rather than going through a whole process, understanding now that risk is high, and now what do I do? So if we can engage early and we can provide that risk to them, and that they're better informed to make better decisions in their process. So that's how I would answer it. It's a key part in our mission. And we've been pretty successful in achieving that over the last few years in terms of building it in and getting the business to really focus on risk as one of the key components to achieving those business outcomes.
That's great. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, so I'll add a couple points there. Mark, you brought up some great points, and I'll tie one back to Chris made earlier. The first one I think is around assurance. So I think Mark provided some really critical and instrumental points around being risk-based decisions. And so using an analytical model like FAIR really provides the organization confidence that the decisions being made are truly risk-based, they're defensible, they're logical, and they'll support strategic objectives. This is critically important, as you know, when you're allocating hundreds of thousands of dollars or even millions of dollars to remediate risks and effectively prioritizing strategic planning efforts, capital X, et cetera. So making an ill-advised decision around cyber risk, whether it's probability or impact, if you don't have the right data or you're using a model that's not effectively modeling your environment, can effectively cripple your organization in today's cyber threat landscape. You're allocating spend in the wrong areas, you're wasting resources that are finite, so you're doing yourself a disservice. So conversely, when you're doing those things well, there's just tremendous value to provide your organization to help you effectively grow and thrive and meet your objectives. The second one around is efficiency. So this ties back well with, I think, Chris's point that he made earlier on operating models. But integrating cyber risk within the business ecosystem really results in a highly effective and efficient risk management environment, sort of that machine, if you will, where decisions are made with purpose and clarity. Everyone knows their roles. They know where they fit within the risk life cycle. They know who should be treating risk. There's no confusion. So this, when it's running well, it really is akin to a well-run machine. Chris, any other points that you want to add on?
Yeah, I think to take the inverse of the question is like when it's not being done well, what ends up happening? That is when cyber risk management isn't being done well. And I think the perception can grow of the security program that they're just the group that can say no. And we really want to be viewed as the group that is an enabler to the business and is helping the business make better decisions. So when it's done well, it's really better business decisions through better business collaboration and data that enables those decisions to be made in a more objective way. So it really changes the script of the conversation. And how that happens in a lot of ways is through focus. We've seen clients that are sort of drowning in thousands of findings and issues and all of these things. And, we always try to recommend that, it's better to manage 10 or 20 risks really well than 1,000 poorly. And so we try to bring that focus to what we're doing. And when risk management is doing really well, the program is focused, the business is focused, there's a clear tie to business objectives, and that ultimately affects the bottom line. So that's sort of what I would add there, Mike.
Great points.
Great points. So, we've only got, a handful of minutes left, but, I want to kind of take I guess the next step is momentum really helps things, right? So what are some of the popular quick wins, as they say, that people can go, work on now to kind of get that program started? And I'm just going to pick on you again, Mark. I love your opening answers.
Yeah, no. So listen, I think first and foremost, we talked about it in a previous question, is embrace a framework and a model, right? I mean, you need some guardrails in order to go attack, right? So, in terms of what should we attack first or second, it's at least going to give you those pieces to the puzzle that you should go deep on. So I think embracing a framework, and then really, for us, it's identifying, the things that are most critical in running your business. So your critical assets, critical data, critical applications, critical business processes, and tying all them together. So as we know that the volume and sophistication of these threats are coming fast and furious. You know how to respond to them in a more proactive way by understanding what you have. And then tying that into a risk appetite or risk tolerance level, right? Because you really need that from an enterprise level, is what is my risk tolerance and risk appetite, and then as you tie all that together, your framework, your critical asset management, inventory, third-party supplier visibility, you tie that into your risk appetite and risk tolerance, and then you can paint a pretty good picture in terms of impact and likelihood.
Great. Mike?
Yeah, all great points. I'll add on to that and talk a little bit about actually running the program. So Mark talked about some critical design components that need to be foundationally in place to effectively manage risk. And just to add on top of that, I think one of the important quick wins you can do is really reporting actionable metrics to the executive team. So one of the most effective ways to build support for the risk program and the cyber program is to monitor and report data-driven metrics, whether it's KPIs and KRIs to your executive team. And conversely, not doing this is also one of the quickest ways to lose support for your cyber and risk programs. So we recommend a set of KPIs that measure the program performance and value, that look across the risk life cycle and track program maturity. Where are you in your scoping? How many site assessments have you done? How many risks have you identified? How many are treated? How many are untreated? Show those KPI-based performance metrics that show that the risk program is actually providing value to the organization. And additionally, we also recommend KRIs, key risk indicators, that align to your organization's top 10 risk scenarios using the FAIR model and FAIR construct around risk scenarios. KRIs such as patching and number of vulnerabilities, etc., however, that are tied directly to those risk scenarios and the assets at risk, will provide your organization with that proactive approach to managing risk versus a sort of a reactive approach to measuring future loss events. And I think that's a critically important component of any successful risk organization. I don't know, Chris, anything else to add?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. One thing that we've seen repeatedly at clients we interact with is like term confusion. There's so many terms in this industry, and like what's the difference between a finding, an issue, a risk, a vulnerability, a threat, an incident, a risk event, and all these terms, and it can create a lot of challenges in figuring out what data you need if everyone's calling things something different. So I think a really sort of foundational item that any program that's either trying to get off the ground or accelerate is making sure the terms are right and the key stakeholders for your program know what those terms are and what they're referring to. And then once you have that, it's really taking the risk formula, threat, vulnerability, impact, which is very much what FAIR is based upon, and figuring out who in your enterprise has that data already and how do you get it so that you can start doing those analyses to inform the business, to inform executives, to inform decision makers. And then once that sort of starts going, you can continue to refine and build the machine that we've referenced multiple times.
Great. So we have about maybe a minute, and I just want to do a rapid fire with you guys. So what are the biggest challenges, you see for large enterprises realizing value from deploying a risk management system or program?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Thanks, Heath. Again, I think some of it has to do with, what do we have to attack next? And probably attack is the wrong word, but what should we be focused on next, right? Because again, like I said before, the volume and sophistication of the current threats is at a level that we haven't seen before, us in the industry. So what do we attack next? And that's always a challenge. But I'm someone who likes to really focus on the fundamentals and really having a sense of what is most important to us, so we can focus our efforts on those first, not solely, but at least we know what's most important to us. So, really trying to, and that's where the framework really comes in to help, and why I mentioned before it's important to embrace the framework. So it helps us kind of target the things we should be focused on and give us those guardrails. So, again, a lot of challenges because of the size of the organization, but really what's our focus this year versus next year is always a challenge.
Okay. Mike,
I'll just add on to one quick point that Mark made around frameworks. I think one of the biggest challenges out there is there's just too many control standards, there's risk frameworks and models, and generally it's confusing. Doesn't matter sort of which one you pick, but the organization should be aligned on a common set of controls and a single risk model to frame their program around. If you don't do this, you're really going to provide and yield incongruent risk analysis, which effectively results in wasted resources. So critically important to look at data and decisions from an apples to apples perspective. Chris, anything else to add?
Yeah, if I could say one challenge, it's get out of the control exclusive mindset, which really only looks at the vulnerability part of the risk formula, and figure out how to work on threat and business impact. There's too many organizations that are sort of just looking at one part of the formula, calling it risk, and everyone just sort of goes about their business without looking at it holistically.
Great. What a great discussion. Sorry, I wish we had more time for more questions, but I appreciate you guys sharing your insights and expertise today. And I also think that you've given our viewers plenty to think about. So thanks, everybody. And look forward to seeing you at FAIR 2020.
Thanks, Heath. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Heath.